Hello, Americans. I'm Kent McNall. It's Constitution time. It's Friday, October 23rd, 2020, 11 days before the general election. Today, I want to talk about the Affordable Care Act. By the way, just to mention the debate that, whoops, just to mention the debate that happened last night. I want to say that that was a little piece of what we should get because that was a much more calm debate issues, and there was some of this and some of that, but I thought that that was much more along the lines of what I hope to see from a presidential debate. So that was good. The Affordable Care Act is a landmark legislation that was passed during the Obama administration, really one of the few that President Obama was able to pass because he was, from that point forward, very, very much deadlocked with Congress. Affordable Care Act is really important to a lot of Americans and much more than we even realize. And many people, it's important to them even though they don't know that it is. I look forward to doing a much more extensive discussion of the Affordable Care Act with a panel. But I bring it up in this context because so many of the issues that I'm most concerned about for our democracy and for our Constitution swirl around the Affordable Care Act. It's just a poster child for some of the things that I feel are going wrong and could really be a lot of trouble for us in the future. One of the things that has directly gone wrong with it is that the current executive, the incumbent, it was his stated purpose and goal coming into office to undo everything that the previous administration had done, everything. And that is one thing that he's definitely very, very close to making good on. And one of the reasons he's able to do that is because President Obama had to do so much by executive order. Because of the ultimate partisanship, that's my number one reason that we're in a little bit of trouble. He could get very, very, very little done through the means that it's supposed to occur through, which is legislation in the Congress through the Senate. And as a result, he began to use executive orders, as every president has, but to a much greater extent. And his options were to achieve nothing for the American people or to use executive orders. Well, once those types of things become precedents, it's very hard to undo that. And so we've seen his successor, the current executive, use executive orders to a great extent as well. The problem with doing things through executive orders, aside from that's just not the way it's supposed to work, is that they can be undone through executive orders. And I think the last thing the American people need or want to see is each successive administration undoing what the last one did as their first order of business. That's no way to move forward. Well, the current executive has done just that. And were he successful, as appears to be imminent, in taking out the Affordable Care Act, then he will have successfully undone, although it took him almost an entire term in undoing what the previous executive did. And that's a game of ping pong I just don't think that we can afford to play. We just won't be able to move forward if that's the way we're going to do things. Now, is that directly constitutional? I think it is, because I think that the gridlock of ultimate partisanship that I've talked about is not working the way that the Constitution anticipated that it should. The extreme use of executive orders that we're now seeing is not what was anticipated by the Constitution. And so at least in those two areas, it's very much a constitutional issue in my mind. But the Affordable Care Act, as I said, has become extremely important to millions of Americans, not only because it provides health insurance for people who otherwise have no way to get it, but also because it protects the rest of us with many aspects of the law that was passed, pre-existing conditions being the most important one. And I think that we do not want to be at the mercy of insurance companies, folks. We don't want that, because their ability to charge whatever they want for drugs and for insurance seems to be completely protected by our government, even no matter how ridiculous it is. Millions of people, for example, have diabetes. Well, diabetes drugs have been around for a very long time. The research was done a long time ago, and while they continue to do some research, that cost to those companies was amortized decades ago. Yet they charge ridiculous amounts of money for that life-saving drug needed by so many people. So the protections provided by the Affordable Care Act are extremely important to all of us. And one thing that concerns me greatly is the casualness with which the current administration talks about, oh, we'll just get rid of this one and then we'll do another one, no problem. It was a monumental task to get the Affordable Care Act through Congress. And despite what folks in the current administration seem to think, they're not going to snap their fingers and get another act passed. They may not be able to get one passed at all if they have a hostile Congress like President Obama did. So it is by no means a foregone conclusion that another healthcare bill protecting all those Americans and providing those protections from insurance companies could even get passed. So there's a lot on the line when it comes to the Affordable Care Act. So the next constitutional quandary that the Affordable Care Act runs into just happened recently with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But really, it started in 2016 when the Senate refused to do its job and even consider Supreme Court nominations from the then current executive. And the abandonment of norms by the Senate at that time, you know, they just basically decided, simply because they were in the majority, that, well, even though it's 10 months away, we really don't have to consider this. Well, I put it to you, if that party then did not have to consider it when it was 10 months out, what's to stop the next party from saying the same thing when it's 24 months out? Well, yeah, we don't have to do that. The Constitution doesn't say when we have to do it. So why shouldn't we just do the same thing that Senate majority did and just simply not listen to any of your not provide advice and consent to the administration, even though it's 2 years out? We don't, that's the last thing that we need. So now some kind of legislation or Supreme Court, amendment to the Constitution may be needed to say, okay, and here's how long you have to do this, Senate. So the abandonment of those norms and those courtesies plays a big role here. And now, in the current situation, they're rushing through a Supreme Court nominee specifically because they believe that that nominee is going to help overturn the Affordable Care Act. And that is happening through an overloaded Supreme Court. So again, the problems that I'm seeing with our democracy, with our Constitution, are piling up here to create a situation where we could lose something very, very important. And by the way, I am not qualified to say, have not studied the matter enough to say whether the Affordable Care Act is the very best way that we could provide these protections or get these 20 or 30 million people insurance. But I'll tell you what, with the way things are going because of COVID, there's a lot more people that are likely to need the Affordable Care Act in the coming months. Real bad time to be getting rid of it. So I'm certainly not saying that it can't be replaced by something better. And it would be wonderful if the government actually came up with something better to replace it with. But that's the right way to do it. Come up with the something better, then get rid of the current one so that the new one can go into effect at the same time. It's the same legislative process. If the current administration is saying we can do something better, well, what they're saying is we can get something better through Congress. Well, if they can get something better through Congress, at the same time, they can get rid of the old one. So if they can do one, they can do the other. Let's do it that way instead of saying, well, let's get rid of it first, because what we're talking about is a process that could take years where people's pre-existing conditions are not protected, years where those millions of people don't have that insurance coverage. So we've got to address these constitutional issues, and we're clearly not going to address them in the next 2 weeks before the election. We might make progress towards addressing them with the result of the election, but whichever way the election goes, we've got to address these things. We can't have such important decisions as Supreme Court nominees, as landmark legislation that protects the American people, as overloaded Supreme Courts happening by fiat and just simply because we're not following our own rules and our own norms that we set out, and we're exploiting cracks in the Constitution. The Founding Fathers should not have had to say, well, the Senate will advise and consent, meaning that they advise the president on the president's nomination for the Supreme Court, and they consent to it. They approve it. They should not have had to say, and you're not going to screw around with the time frame of that. You're going to do it right away. They should not have had to say that. So this is important, folks, and I hope that we don't learn how important it is because we lose it. It's a bad time to learn how something was really helpful and beneficial. And it's true, if we do lose it, and it's as big a deal as I think it will be, then there will be a great outcry that will probably force some folks to get off their backsides and get a replacement out there. But at this point, because of what's happened with the Supreme Court, no matter who wins the election, they're going to have to deal with trying to replace the Affordable Care Act if the Supreme Court, in fact, strikes it down. So those are some of the ties I wanted to show in this one act, this one law that they've attempted to replace or strike down, I think, over 60 times since it was put into place. And this was personal to me because I as I've mentioned, I have very bad eyesight, and became disabled because of it, and kind of ended my career. But in that thought process of realizing I'm going to lose my health insurance because I won't be working, I was relying on the Affordable Care Act. And had things gone that way, I would be relying on the Affordable Care Act today. And my heart goes out to people who are listening to the politicians casually talk about getting rid of the Affordable Care Act and not having anything to replace it with. And I cannot imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, in their situation. Now, I got very, very lucky because I didn't realize at that time that I was doing that planning that I would be able to get disability from the government. And so I'm not in that situation, but I know many other people that are. I have a very dear friend who relies on very expensive medication, and that's, what he has would be then considered a pre-existing condition. He may not be able to get that medication. Insurance companies are already headhunting people with diseases like diabetes. Not only is that a pre-existing condition, they're even calling it a lifestyle choice that you have diabetes. So, the insurance company industry is not a matter for this talk show. Maybe I'll make another one for that one because it certainly needs to be discussed. But suffice it to say, if our government isn't going to provide some protections against that industry is going to do whatever they want, even though they're already massively profitable, and the drug companies are massively profitable. There just isn't any end to the greed that is not only allowed but protected. So things like the Affordable Care Act are extremely important to us. Now, we already have millions and millions of Americans on Medicare and Medicaid. And I don't know if folks that say things like the Affordable Care Act or anything that would replace and expand it are socialist. I personally don't believe that Medicare and Medicaid are socialist. We pay into the system for the privilege of having that insurance. But it certainly seems to me like those systems work pretty well. I'm not in favor at all of getting rid of private insurance if that's, but I certainly feel we pay a huge amount for that private insurance. So at any rate, those are some points I wanted to make about the Affordable Care Act. I certainly don't like the idea of getting rid of legislation just because it was done by the previous president. I think that's a bad way to do things. So with that, I will say to you, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back with you on Constitution Time on Monday. Take care, Americans.